Number 8. The Black Tomb. When you think of relics found in ancient Egypt, elaborately painted tombs and carved sarcophagi are probably what come to mind first. But in 2018, archaeologists unearthed a massive black granite sarcophagus that had been untouched for 2,000 years. Because of the terrible smell in the tomb, experts had to wear face masks when excavating the site. And this was before the coronavirus pandemic, so you know it was a legitimately disgusting smell. The source of the unbearable stench wasn't necessarily from the skeletons, but the red-brown sewage water that had leaked into the tomb. But enduring it was worth the discovery made inside. Hoping it could possibly contain the remains of Alexander the Great, archaeologists found not just one skeleton inside the coffin, but 3. Originally unearthed at a construction site, the sarcophagus was surveyed by a team of archaeologists under the command of Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities. After prying open the lid of the tomb about 2 inches, archaeologists were taken aback by the pungent smell that forced them from the site. It wasn't until later that they were able to pry it open completely with help from Egyptian military engineers, and they found the bones of 3 people inside. Sadly, the mummies, who were believed to be a family burial, weren't perfectly embalmed and had deteriorated. All their skin was gone, only their bones remained. Another theory about the contents of the sarcophagus include the possibility that the individuals inside were soldiers from the time of the pharaohs. One of the skulls of the victims of the skeletons had cracks that could be from an arrow injury. Inside the tomb, an alabaster bust was also located, but it was a victim of the elements and weathered beyond recognition. Still, the black granite sarcophagus in the tomb in which it was found is the largest of its kind ever discovered intact. Weighing 27 tons, the sarcophagus is believed to date from the early Ptolemaic period that began after the death of Alexander the Great. For now, though, archaeologists will continue to study the sarcophagus to try and determine when the occupants lived and how they died after ending up with such an unceremonious ending. Number 7. Smoked mummies. Would it surprise you to know that not only did cultures other than the ancient Egyptians mummify their dead, but that mummification still takes place in some areas of the world today? One look at the smoked corpses of Papua New Guinea, and you will see that the culture has a very different method of mummification. A fringe group living in the highland region perform a bizarre ritual to preserve the bodies of their dead. They smoke them over a fire. For many years, the people of remote villages have been performing this elaborate funeral procedure as a way to prevent the spirits of the dead from roaming the jungles, sabotaging their crops. It's an elaborate process that involves an ancient ceremony where the tribe mummified their dead sitting upright and subjecting the body to 3 months of smoking over a constant fire that preserves the body. The body is suspended over a fire and watched over by a group of men who are not allowed to leave the body at any time during the process. They are needed to tend to the body, which will bloat as it smokes, requiring the men to poke at it with wooden sticks to drain its fluids. Most importantly, the face must be kept intact, and after the process is complete, the body is smeared with red clay to maintain its structural integrity. Of course, this doesn't make them any less disturbing to look at. Some end up with parched sections of skin and muscles still clinging to their skeletons. Some still have portions of their hair intact, and their nails blacked and curled. The first reported sighting of these mummies took place in 1907, but with such secretive practices in remote villages, no one knows for sure just how long the macabre ritual has been taking place. They remain, even to this day, propped atop high cliffsides to look down upon the village below. Number 6. Massive Chinese settlement. A recent discovery of a stepped pyramid in China was just one of many surprises uncovered by archaeologists in 2018. The massive pyramid, with 11 separate platforms, which is part of an enormous walled settlement, was one of the most bizarre and impressive structures found left over from ancient China, a time before the Great Wall was even built. The ivory platforms of the stepped pyramid had sophisticated designs that provided defense and restricted access to those inside. Then, on top of that, this complex had residential structures, which leads experts to believe that the ruling Shimao elite lived there. Pottery and bronze artifact production was also done at the site. At the time the site was built, the Shimao took on large-scale building constructions and imported artifacts, showing the importance of economics and exchange in the ancient world. Located along a tributary of the Yellow River, the site was thought to be an important contact point in Central Plains. A massive 230 feet tall, the pyramid was seen from anywhere in the surrounding area, providing a constant reminder to the local population of those who ruled over them. 6 pits found on the site included decapitated human heads, evidence that human sacrifice on a massive scale often took place there. After several hundred years, the Shimao was eventually abandoned and fell into ruin. But as archaeologists continue to excavate, they are learning more about this Chinese civilization and hope to uncover why this once great settlement fell. Number 5. Mysterious stone etchings. In Central Europe, a chilling reminder of the past has appeared written on ancient stones. Boulders inscribed with cryptic messages known as hunger stones have appeared in the Czech Republic. Originally sitting below the waterline of the Elbe River, as the water levels receded, the carved rocks have been exposed to show their chilling messages. One of the oldest and most famous of the landmarks is known as Hunger Rock because of its inscription that dates back to 1616. The inscription, which translates to, "If you see me, weep," is from 1616 and commemorates a number of droughts that go back as far as 1417. Another hunger stone in Germany is similar to the one found in the Czech Republic, with the message, "If you will again see the stone, so you will weep. So shall the water was in the year 1417. If you thought that was ominous, other stones say equally devastating phrases, including, we cried, and you will cry," as well as, "Who once saw me, he cried. Whoever sees me now will cry." Experts believe the stones were inscribed with the mysterious messages as a result of drought and heat that not only brought crop failures, but also death by starvation. Many of the families living along the shore relied upon the river for their livelihoods, and as water levels sank, river transportation was harder, and they found it difficult to make a living. With the river at its lowest level in more than half a century, the stones are resurfacing and not only commemorate a trying time in history, but also offer a reminder to modern-day people that we are at the mercy of the elements for survival. Number 4. Brutalized Canyon skeletons. A new study undertaken on skeletons unearthed in Kenya may offer experts a glimpse into the oldest known evidence of human warfare. 27 skeletons found in Africa from people who died 10,000 years ago show blunt force trauma and projectile wounds. Because the victims include men, women, and children, experts believe that the injuries were not suffered by individuals through murder or homicide. Instead, they believe the people were possibly part of a larger conflict. Discovered at a site called Natarak, the bones were located in 2012 on the southwest edge of Lake Turkana. The find was a unique one, providing direct evidence of warfare among ancient hunter-gatherers. Uncovered as part of a larger project, researchers were working to study the origin of Homo sapiens in the area when they made the discovery. Luckily, a settlement in the lake provided the perfect conditions to preserve the bones over millennia. Once buried in the lagoon, some of the bones were partially visible at the surface. As the archaeologists dug deeper, they found 27 skeletons, with some nearly complete and others just a few fragments. All of the remains dated to between 9,500 and 10,500 years ago. But researchers believe that people weren't deliberately buried there, and instead had fallen where they died. With blunt force trauma to their heads, as well as arrow wounds to their heads and necks, researchers believe the men, women, and children were all killed by bows and arrows, as well as wooden clubs. After studying the remains, experts believe that 2 warring groups clashed, resulting in the casualties. Even though it's difficult to determine why the violence occurred, the discovery shows that wars or warlike conflict were part of human nature, even between ancient humans. Do you think we'll ever achieve world peace? Or are humans just destined to fight with one another for as long as we coexist? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Then, remember to subscribe to Talltanic for more intense videos just like this one. Number 3. The Pit of Arms. A 6,000-year-old pit discovered near the border between Germany and France gave archaeologists a shock when they discovered an ancient pit filled with severed human arms, hands, and fingers. Discovered when an archaeological surveying company was overseeing excavations of a local property, a number of ancient pits known as silos were discovered. 60 silos were found during excavations, including 14 that contained human bones. But one silo, about 5 feet in diameter and 6.5 feet deep, was filled almost completely with human bones. Shockingly, all the bones show cut or amputation marks that were made with either a knife or an axe. The oldest of the deposits dates to about 25,000 years ago and contained at least 7 severed upper limbs, including dismembered hands, fingers, and arms. Both adults and children were located in the pit, including an infant that was no more than a year old. Experts still don't know why this pit was so different from the others, which only contained bodies that showed little signs of violence. Due to the number of bodies located, archaeologists believe that the Neolithic people who used the silos were possibly engaged in some type of war, which was probably common in those days as groups fought over resources. The silos were a unique find on their own, but the one that stood out so starkly from the others was astonishing. It may not offer evidence as to why there was such violence, but it does offer insight into Neolithic societies and power struggles that may have taken place between these ancient people. Number 2. The Witch Chapel. A 15th century chapel in the Scottish city of Aberdeen was hiding a secret that shocked investigators. As historians studied the chapel, they located an iron ring set in the stone pillar of the church. During Aberdeen's Great Witch Hunt in the late 1500s, a trial and execution of 23 women and 1 man occurred in the city. According to experts, there were 2 places within the church that were reserved to imprison those accused of witchcraft. This included the stone wall to the Chapel of St. Mary, in a steeple that was at one time the tallest structure in the city. At the time of the witch hunts in Scotland, trials and executions were undertaken by royal commissions at the order of the king. Interestingly, historical records of the witch trials include payments made to a local blacksmith for the iron rings and shackles that were installed to imprison the witches at the church. City records have even detailed the rope and wood used to burn convicted witches at the stake. The Great Witch Hunt was just one phase of a wave of witch persecutions across Scotland. King James VI of Scotland ordered that anyone accused of witchcraft should be burned at the stake, and it's often said that Aberdeen burned more witches than anywhere else in the world. Beginning in the 15th century, witchcraft persecutions began in Europe, reaching Scotland in the 1590s. Believing that witches communed with the devil, mobs chased down innocent people, who were then arrested, sentenced, and killed. As archaeologists undertook an excavation at the church before restoration work was done, they found the remains of more than 2,000 people, including 1,000 skeletons buried before the 1560s. Sadly though, for those whose ancestors were accused of witchcraft, no remains of the accused were found buried at the site, because at the time, the church would not allow those accused to be buried there, and instead buried them in unhallowed ground. But the iron ring discovered in the Aberdeen church is one link to a painful past of those Scottish citizens who were so wrongly persecuted. Number 1. Massive Greek Grave. A mass grave found near Athens in 2016 is believed to hold the remains of followers who tried to overthrow the leader of ancient Greece. Uncovered as archaeologists excavated a cemetery in the ancient port city of Phaleron, the complex, which dates to between the 8th and 5th centuries BC, was found to house a mass grave of ancient skeletons. But what was most surprising about the find was that many of the individuals were shackled. Of the 80 bodies found in the mass grave, 36 had their hands bound with iron shackles. Pottery shards found near the remains date to between 650 BC and 625 BC, around the same time that a group of prisoners tried to attempt a coup and take over the Acropolis. While the discovery was one that surprised history buffs, archaeologists have been aware of the existence of some of the graves for over a century, but as they started excavations over the area, they believe there could still be a minimum of 1,500 skeletons buried there. Creepy, no? Thanks for watching. Which of these scary archaeological discoveries had you sweating the most? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and check out some other awesome Talltanic videos. And I'll see you next time.